It is June the 21st, 2022. Back on the 24th of October, 1997, after the RCMP raided Gustavson Lake, I wrote a little piece for some First Nations friends. And what was the Kyuquot territories, formerly the Crown Colony of Vancouver Island and the Colony of British Columbia. I wrote a Declaration of Independence for them and faxed it to Ottawa and Victoria and all responsible politicians that might be interested in a Declaration of Independence by First Nations in British Columbia, Canada. Here goes. Declaration of Independence at Souk, October 24, 1997. Public Declaration of First Peoples of Kyuquot Territories before all peoples of the earth seeking peace and justice. We perforce declare, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for the first peoples of one blood of Kyuquot territories to dissolve the political hierarchies imposed upon them for centuries from without by kings and queens of Spain, France, and England, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the law of nature and of nature's great spirit entitle them. A long-awaited, decent respect to the opinions of humankind and ancestors requires that they should herein declare the causes which impel them towards peaceful separation. First peoples hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people and persons deserve equal respect, and that they are endowed by the Great Spirit with certain inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are to be instituted among people, thereby deriving their just powers from the valid consent of the people being governed, and that government becomes invalid should the nexus of power dissolve out of the hands of the people into a quagmire of privilege and insidious corruption. That whatever any form of government becomes thus destructive to people and their cultures, it is the right of the people to employ whatever means available and necessary to abolish it and to institute a new form of republican government, laying its foundations on clear principles of simple organization and responsible government, that to first people in Kyuquot territories shall seem most likely to affect their future safety and happiness, and that of welcome immigrant peoples alike. All experience hath shown that peaceful people are by nature more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of government to which they have been chained at both ankles and wrists for centuries. But when this long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, being naked profit or theft of lands and sovereignty at the people's loss, evinces the design for the people's destruction at the hands of absolute despotism, it is their right and duty to throw off the reign of terror perpetrated by European and American imperialists and their perverse mockery of parliamentary principles, in which the imposed forms of municipal, regional, provincial, and federal governments have become, by design, ineffectual and utterly non-representational of first people and their historic rights and interests to Kyuquot and its resources. Such has been the patient sufferance of Aboriginal people in Kyuquot territories, once called the Colony of Vancouver Island and the Colony of British Columbia, now simply British Columbia. And such is now the necessity which constrains first peoples to abolish these oppressive colonial systems of exploitation. The history of the present colonial regime and her predecessors is a history of continually inflicted injuries and injustices and usurpations of rights and authority belonging to first peoples, and all having the direct object of perpetuating an absolute tyranny over the conquered and divided first people. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to the International Court of Justice at The Hague at an open and public hearing. Therein lies the possibility for peace. The regime has made Parliament ineffectual by design, purposefully diffused responsibility into oblivion, and refused to accept assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for first people and the public good. The regime has forbidden legislatures to pass laws of pressing importance and has utterly neglected to attend to our genuine needs in Kyuquot. The regime has continually refused or neglected to pass laws for the accommodation of Aboriginal justice and self-government unless the people relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. The regime has called together under false authority legislative bodies at unusual places distant from the people for the sole purpose of fatiguing us into compliance with foreign oppression. The regime has obstructed and retarded the administration of justice by refusing to assent to laws providing for aboriginal judicial powers, has made crown judges wholly dependent upon the will of the regime alone for the tenure of offices and amount and payment of salaries, has erected an endless multitude of new offices and sent swarms of officers to harass our people and to eat our substance, has affected to render military power of the regime independent of and superior to our civil power, has combined with other regimes to subject us to foreign jurisdiction beyond our territories and without consent of our people, has imposed taxes of all manner upon us without consent, has deprived us in many cases of trial by jury, taken away our charters, abolished our sacred laws, and altered fundamentally our forms of governance by forcibly replacing ours with theirs. The regime has suspended our own legislatures and longhouses and potlatches and declared themselves invested with God-given power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever, has abdicated representative government here in Kyuquot territories by declaring us out of the regime's protection with regards to many manifold American intrusions into our ancient rights and the waging of real or imagined wars upon everything sacred by plundering our seas and rivers and ravaging our coasts and forests and resources, thus destroying the traditional lives of our people. In each and every stage of these usurpations and oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by redoubled and repeated injury and injustice. A regime whose character is thus marked by every act which does define tyranny is thereby proven unfit to be the ruler of the free peoples of Kyuquot. We must therefore acquiesce to the necessity which compels us to separation from the Confederation of Canada, and with justice and compassion hold Canada as should we hold the rest of humankind, enemies in war, peace and friends. We appeal to the International Court of Justice for all free people to understand that the people of Kyuquot solemnly publish and declare the Republic of Kyuquot a free and independent state, absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown, Canadian Parliament, and that all political connection and bond between these territories and the Confederation of Canada and her own commitments and obligations shall be totally dissolved forthwith. Long live the Republic of Kyuquot. As a free and independent state, shall have full power over our seat at the United Nations, self-defense, civil authority, and justice. Alliances, contracts, commerce, and all other acts and things which an independent state may have right do on behalf of her people, and for the support of this Declaration of Independence of Kyuquot, based upon good and sufficient evidence of colonial oppression for centuries, you must look to the people, resting in firm reliance upon divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our future fortunes, our sacred honor, and that of our ancestors.